This video is brought to you in part by Squarespace. Yeah, you're probably pretty familiar with that name by now on this channel, and that's no surprise. I love working with these guys, and I love their program. Long and short of it, if you're trying to get yourself a website online, Squarespace are the people you want to work with. I've personally always been intimidated at the idea of even starting a website, but these guys got me up and going within half an hour. I spend more time on character creators in video games. It takes you just a handful of minutes to get the basics, and they walk you through everything, no matter how intricate you want to get. They have a ton of preset designs that you can just get up and going at your heart's content, and it all looks super professional. And for those of you who want to get a little bit more bold and creative, you can go behind the curtains and tweak every little thing to your heart's content. If you're trying to put together a shop, portfolio, or whatever, they have tools that can track your growth, help you build an ad campaign, integrate with other social media platforms, and again, all of that is streamlined and easy to understand. It takes very little effort to get something clean and professional up in front of the world. Having your own domain name looks super sexy on a business card. And to make it even easier, if you head over to squarespace.com/gameapologist, you'll get 10% off your first purchase. Seriously, you could get this done in the time it takes you to watch this video. Thank you again to Squarespace for helping out, and on with the show. Welcome back to Mecha March Madness, where we're taking a look at every robo-double of the Sonic universe. And today, we have a rather special case, as we're looking at a robot double exclusive to a choose-your-own-adventure novel released only in the UK. This is Zonik, the titular antagonist of the Sonic the Hedgehog Adventure Gamebook Volume 3, Sonic vs. Zonik. And we can see the two hedgehogs here on the cover in the middle of a touching contest. This bolted metal design bears a striking resemblance to the Mecha Sonic from Sonic 2, but without the buzzsaw quills, and going even further with the bolted metal, as even its eyes are made out of iron, with bolts as pupils. Not sure how he's managing to see out of those things, but whatever, I ain't gonna question it. This design is a little bit more on the generic side, but I gotta admit, I kinda like the iron eyes. It makes it look a little bit creepier. And hey, it is yet another Sonic robot, so we have to talk about it. And frustratingly, when I first discovered this robot last year, I didn't find a lot of information on him online, so I took it upon myself to import a book, read through it, and even share some scans of the artwork for you guys today. So yes, that does make this a very weird edition of Sonic speed reading, one where we're looking at an actual book. Well, okay, kind of. See, the Adventure Gamebook series did more than just have you make choices in the story. This is a full-on pencil and paper RPG requiring you to take notes and use a six-sided die. I actually attempted to play this with my folks over on the Discord server, and yeah, it started off fun enough, but man, it became well, you'll see. Okay, so before you even start reading, you have to follow some rules and get a few things situated. First off, like any other choose-your-own adventure, this is not read through like a normal book. It's split not into pages, but in sections, with a total of 300. At the end of each section, you will be told which section you next have to jump to, unless you're given a multiple choice. There's also sections that require you to use a die, so a bit of luck is involved. This will help determine how well you survive harrowing situations or who wins in a fight. Basic RPG stuff. You roll a die and then you add that number with whatever number you have with whatever skill you have in play, because yeah, there are skills and stats. They're split up into 6 categories. The reader will need to pick one stat they want to put the highest skill number in, that being 6, and then descend from there in each category. Those 6 skills include speed, strength, agility, quick wits, and obviously, the most important thing about Sonic the Hedgehog, good looks. No, unfortunately, that doesn't mean that this is a dating sim for all you Sonic Zonik shippers out there. Good looks basically acts as charisma, even though coolness also kinda acts as charisma. No need to overthink it. You just have to do some basic math and see how well you perform, and then ignore all of that after you fail an encounter and then continue on pretending that you actually won, because let's be real, that's what every kid did with these stupid books. Me and the folks in in my server actually decided what numbers would go into each stat, and we did it quite randomly, and it left us with a Sonic whose worst skill was speed. Our Sonic was a lumbering beefcake. Sonic the Hedgehimbo. On top of the stats, you also have a life and ring system. You start off with 3 lives, so if you lose an encounter, you can try again as long as you have extra lives, and if you collect 100 rings in your adventure, you can get yourself a 1-up. And I love that they incorporated the lives and rings from the games here. It's very cute. And there's also an inventory. You can pick up random stuff during your adventure and place it here, so yeah, you really have to keep notes if you want to play this game seriously. But the game starts you off with a cool gun. Yeah, you thought it was weird when Shadow was packing heat? Well, Sonic had a gun long before he ever did, apparently. And it shoots energized cool. It's just a freeze ray, and apparently you can use it at any time, but truth be told, I never did with my one read-through of this thing. I gotta tell you, I was pretty impressed with just how much work was put into the game side of things here. I was not expecting this much effort. This sounds like a great little time for kids, and it incentivizes replayability. Or readability? I don't know. But as me and my server soon found out that that charm wore down very, very quickly. Different choices might lead you to different things, but I'm still gonna run you through some of the stuff we encountered, because as I skimmed through the book, I don't really think it's gonna detour away from the main adventure all that often, regardless of how many different choices you make. The book starts off in Green Hill Zone, where Sonic is just playing his Mega Drive when all of a sudden he's attacked by a group of maniac bunnies. Yeah, we're in for a weird time. Turns out a bunch of Sonic's animal friends are ticked off with him, and he's not sure why, so he sets off to figure out what's going on. And the first image we see is Sonic dizzy after he is smacked in the head by a coconut thrown by Coconuts, who is a badnik in the classic games, but here, at least the way it's depicted, Coconuts is just a regular monkey. That's weird, they're showing off what's normally a robot as a regular animal. What a silly mistake to make. I'm sure that nothing else like that is going to happen in the rest of this book. Anyway, after a few choices, we eventually run into Tails, who is pretty badly beaten up, unconscious with his fur singed. He's on top of some sort of contraption, and after you roll a few die and make a couple more choices, you eventually make your way to him and wake him up. And then Tails will fly away from Sonic in a panic. From there, Sonic has to chase him down, and you have to make a few more choices, and eventually, if you play your cards right, you will eventually calm Tails down, and he will explain that he was attacked by none other than Sonic himself. But Tails manages to believe that Sonic is the real deal by touching him. Okay. Apparently, the Sonic that attacked Tails shocked his fur anytime he made contact with the evil hedgehog. But the real Sonic is nice and safe to touch, as many fan artists already know. From here, depending on what you do, you can find yourself going through detours, dead ends, picking up vital tools and clues. Like, for instance, Sonic and Tails come across a glowing blue quill in a cave, and they'll need to pick it up with tweezers. I managed to get mine by using my zone chip. It's an item you can come across during the story and use at any time, which will send Sonic to the White Room. There you have to pick a door, go through some obstacles, and pick up an item of your choice. I picked up some tweezers to pick up this mysterious blue quill, otherwise it hurts our heroes. And yes, obviously I immediately thought of the Sonic movie as well. Maybe that flick had deeper cut references than I realized. Got some Zonik fans in the cast and crew. Maybe another adventure book can fill us in on Robotnik's interest in breast milk. The quill is, of course, not from Sonic, but from Zonik, which I found interesting. I keep making the joke, but seriously, there were so many imposters framing Sonic long before Shadow ever showed up, and Zonik is yet another one of them. But I did notice at this point, we had been reading for quite a while and hadn't actually run into the fake hog. And while the cover and interior art all depict Zonik as a robot, so far it seems like Zonik might have blue fur of his own, with the hinting of these quills and the notes from Tails and these ticked off animals, as they make no mention of Zonik looking like a robot. So who knows, maybe Zonik has fake skin and fur like some sort of Sonic Terminator. Oh, and if you're wondering where the name Zonik came from, it was because Tails tried to say Sonic's name while holding his nose to block out a nasty smell, and Sonic just thought it sounded catchy. Yeah, we're getting ourselves some sweet deep lore here. Can't wait to see the wiki articles updated after this video. You're welcome, Sonic fans. But whatever you end up doing, you're still likely to end up in most of the same areas no matter what choices you make. Even though this adventure starts in Green Hill Zone, every other zone comes straight out of Sonic 2. Chemical Plant is up next, and this is where the fun started to wane a bit, as the book took every opportunity to waste my time with a maze, giving you few options outside of choosing to go left or right over and over again, even having you loop in sections. So again, best to keep track of what choices you make, what sections you've already explored, and on top of that, the book will punish you for not paying attention, as you are required to rack up points with each section you hit. The book will let you know when you have to do this. Every section marked with an asterisk that you visit, you have to add that to your tally. And if you hit 100 points, you run out of time and you're going to get hit by the rising Mega Mech. I was growing pretty frustrated at this point, and a bit embarrassed because I'm a grown-ass man and I was being bested by a children's choose-your-own-adventure novel. But eventually, I made it out, and we get our first encounter with Zonik, which can go a few different ways depending on what you choose to do and how you roll your die. Sonic and Tails first encounter Zonik while they're hiding behind, well, something I don't really remember, but the point is they hear two voices speaking to each other, and you can decide to confront these mysterious voices straight away or wait behind and see if you can hear what these two strangers are saying. If you wait like I did, you will hear Zonik take out the robot he's speaking to, and when you turn a corner, you will see the destroyed robot with the fake Sonic standing on top of its remains. And when Sonic attempts to attack the doppelganger, Zonik just dodges the attack and speeds off, mocking Sonic and telling him it's not yet time for them to fight. And I gotta admit that it is pretty cool. They really build up Zonik and show you how serious of a threat he could potentially be to the real Hedgehog, and showing us a bit of personality as well. He's cocky and confident like the real Sonic, but has a cruel streak, wiping out an ally and making Sonic look like a chump. Now, you could also choose to confront the robot and Zonik head on, and I don't know, that section was a bit confusing, because when I flipped over to the section the book told me to go to, Zonik just disappears, and the robot, which is a giant grabber, the spiders from Chemical Plant in Sonic 2, it just gets tired and goes to sleep. Seriously, it decides it just doesn't want to bother with the Hedgehog, and when Sonic asks about his imposter, Grabber just tells him to go ask Robotnik and then just powers down and rests. I love it. And honestly, I do need to give this book some credit, because outside of this Grabber and that weird real coconuts, the badniks are pretty hardcore in this book. That's something I also noticed with the Fleetway books. In the games, you normally just hop on them, a little animal pops out, and you carry on. But every time you come across them in this story, outside of the couple exceptions I mentioned, they are huge. They're a genuine threat to Sonic. Back in the day, Sonic's enemy variety was somewhat limited, so a lot of early media boosted up the badniks to have bigger personalities, or in this case, just literally bigger. They also come across a giant shell cracker in a tunnel system, a Chop Chop that is reconfigured into a sea serpent, and if you detour on Hilltop and some other point in the book, you run into a Rexon. Those Nessie looking bots just hang out in fire in Sonic 2, and only now am I realizing, wow, that could be a really cool idea. Sonic in the middle of a lake of fire having to take down a giant Plesiosaurus robot. That's awesome. There are so many cool old school badnik designs that could really use a good beef up. Kind of like how they did for bosses on occasion in the Game Gear games. And outside of the badniks, you also run into some interesting original characters, like these rats that help guide Sonic and Tails through caves and speak in riddles. I actually came across this picture of the rats while I was going through a different section of the book. That's a problem you're going to run into. There are illustrations, but since there are so many sections on one page, you're likely going to see some goofy-ass scenarios that have nothing to do with whatever's going on in your current run of the book. And my server, bless their hearts, they were getting so bored at this point that after I mentioned that there was going to be rats eventually, they started making up their own lore about rats in the group chat. Oh, and we also run into a skunk named Withy, who will give you a stink bomb. And nobody tell Ken Penders, apparently he created skunks. It's kind of fun seeing new characters or exploring classic game environments in a new way, but like I said up front, this adventure wears out its welcome very, very quickly. See, with all of these choices and rules that require these scenarios to test your luck, that left very little room for actual story and character development. And frustratingly, even on the game side of things, the book was not very creative, going so far as to purposely waste your time with nonsense mazes. Chemical Plant was just the first, there are still plenty more ahead of it, and our two heroes really don't have much in the way of personality. Sonic does seem kind of cocky, I guess, and Tails just sounds exasperated with Sonic the entire way through. true. Robotnik shows up like one time, maybe appears more than once, I don't know. I'm not gonna read through this again to find out, but it was just randomly in the middle of the sea, and he mistook Sonic for Zonik, and that was that. Oh, that's right, this video is supposed to be about Zonik. Well, you spend this entire book chasing him down. He's always one step ahead of our heroes, leaving you to deal with the busted remains of a spiky, self-automated car. I think this is supposed to represent that drill car boss fight from Sonic 2, I don't really know. And in Casino Night, you have to roll through a pinball section for some reason. I don't know. Point is, you don't get a lot of Zonik in the story, but on occasion you do run into the doppelganger. I next encountered him in Mystic Cave Zone, where he was trying to track down a Chaos Emerald. I gotta admit, I thought this was a pretty cool image here. Yeah, there's a lot of weird nonsense that doesn't really line up with the games, but even all these years later, every fan knows just how important the emeralds are. So seeing this robot here holding an emerald, even without reading this section, you know that this puts Sonic and Tails in a very dangerous scenario. And yeah, if you're not careful, you can very easily lose this encounter. But if you have a stink bomb and you roll just the right way, you can stink up the double and run off with the emerald, which is weird now that I'm thinking about it. A stink bomb really shouldn't mess with a mechanical double. Oh well. After dinking around a bit more, rowing across an oil ocean, or maybe it's aquatic ruin, I don't really remember, rolling around in Casino Night, and even chasing Zonik through the sky in a jet, I thought it was pretty obvious that this book was inspired by the events of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and Zonik, in turn, was clearly inspired by the Mecha Sonic fight at the end of the game. And while I mostly have been finding this book to be a tedious time-wasting drag, it's more game than story, and the game just kinda sucks, I did like the idea of making Mecha Sonic a much more active antagonist that bothered Sonic through his adventure, something that other robots and Shadow would better flesh out in the future. I'm skipping a lot of things here, but trust me, there's not a lot of progression in terms of characterization, and I don't want to waste your time like this book did. Eventually, we get to Metropolis Zone, get on a bus, which sure, and eventually end up in tunnels that landed me in a factory, one filled with bottles that had erratic blue goo inside of them. Apparently, this factory is here making clones of Sonic, and this weird blue goo is the prototype forms of these clones. And I love this image here showing all of them in Sonic-shaped bottles. This looks so weird. You can explore some different rooms like bottling and production and all kinds of stuff, but you have to sort this out just by wrecking the place, basically. Sonic takes his branding very seriously, and he's shutting down a bootleg merch operation. That's the moral of the story. Don't pirate Sega IP, kids. And soon after, Zonik shows up furious, and you have one final showdown with the doppelganger. Now, to be fair to this book, or game book, you do need some special tools, and you need to take out 3 lives with some good dice rolls. This is, by the rules set up in this book, the toughest challenge at the end here. But once it's all said and done, Sonic and Tails just straight up murder Zonik, who just melts into a pile of blue goo. So, wait, hang on a second here. Did I just read through this boring, tedious, nonsense novel that I imported from another country so I could cover yet another obscure Sonic robot for this stupid marathon, only to find out at the end of the book that this wasn't a robot at all? Yeah, as it turns out, Zonik is just a fully formed clone, and Sonic straight up murders him and then aborts all of its siblings. What? There's clearly a robot on the cover. What is happening here? How is there such a disconnect between the artist and author? Was the editor even bothering checking the notes here? So yeah, I guess Zonik is a little bit closer to Shadow than I realized. It's just another man-made meanie. It's not a robot whatsoever. Now, where'd the blue goo come from? How did Robotnik even clone Sonic? I don't know. Maybe there's a little more information in here somewhere, but I sincerely doubt it. This is so bare bones and mindless, and yes, I understand that this is for little kids, but I have to wonder how many children made their way through this stupid thing only to end up completely confused like I was. They represent Zonik as a robot, not just on the cover, but throughout the entire book in every little bit of art we see of him. And there's nothing here in these pictures that would indicate that this thing would melt down into a pile of blue goo. Well, like I said, Zonik did have a couple of cool moments in the story, and I actually enjoy the goofy art when he does show up. And again, I love the idea of giant scary badniks, and I do like that they have individual personalities. But yeah, the idea of an evil Sonic is nothing new, and goodness knows we had a lot of options back then, and we have even more now. The most interesting thing about Zonik is the confusing fact that the story depicts him as a clone, and the art depicts him as a robot. Man, honestly, after stumbling across more than a couple of typos, and even a few scenarios that you literally cannot get out of because they wrote down the wrong sections to go to, or trapped you in a loop because they did their math wrong with dice rolls and didn't think through every single scenario properly, I'm not surprised in the slightest. This whole book is a pretty low effort production. I literally had to skim through the entire book to find the next section I was actually supposed to jump to, because the one I was trapped on just sent me to the one I was just previously on, if that makes any kind of sense. So for example, I was on section 56 and then it told me to turn to 117, and then section 117 just told me to go back to 56. You see the problem there? But yeah, there you go. We have covered what I thought was going to be a novel exclusive Sonic robot, but nope, this horrible thing couldn't even give me that. But hey, now you know that you never need to bother with this horrible little thing. And hey, like I said up front, I have not seen any scans of the artwork previously online, so here you go. I hope you enjoyed them throughout this video. I will be dropping them on Twitter a little bit later as well, so it's just out there for other fans. No matter the quality, I do think this stuff needs to be preserved. And believe it or not, there is another Sonic robot in another one of these books. I just need to track that stupid book down. I just don't want to spend hundreds of dollars doing it. But yeah, there you go. A very weird addition to Mecha March Madness. The Sonic robot that isn't actually a robot. But with that, I think it's time to bring this stupid video to a close. I am so sorry for wasting your time, guys. But hey, if you stuck around this long, thank you so much. And hey, if you want to pitch in any further, I do have a Patreon. I do try to get videos out early. We do have Discord access, though I imagine that doesn't sound too appealing if I'm just reading horrible stories to my patrons. Like really, every single time we read this horrible book, I brought the mood down. And that's what you want from a YouTuber Discord, right? A YouTuber that you don't want to be around. Oh well, thank you to everybody who sat with me while we did this horrible read-through. Always a fun time hanging out with you guys. And an extra special thank you to these fine folks here. And yes, I'm going to replace every single S I come across with Z in honor of this amazing character we just analyzed. Kyle Winter, Zurus the Skeptic, Joseph Duncan Zonik 2 Blue, John, Josh Strider, Mecha Monroe, who's not a mecha at all, Faizan Razul, there's a Z in there, maybe it's Faizan Razul, I'll do that, Hatsworth, Tiny Jericho, Ginger Bob, Jack of all spades, Tristan Trapp, Meekers, Dun, quote, Resident Fanboy, I'm sorry, Resident Fanboy, no, we'll just do Biohazard Fanboy, why not, Miles the Prower, Jeremy Zinger, Mr. Boo J, Zam Webster, Dwight Graham, Fish Flop, I don't know how to change that into a Z, I'm sorry, Fish, Lucas Lipker, The Bad Pal, Jonathan Dobbs, Clover Chatz, Haley, Mr. Dr. ZP, Doctorate Pending, Cecil the Glade, The Dark Neon, Stefan Placonica, 3 Monic, Graham J. Hall, Lenny X, Wayne is Boz, Jamie Chevalier, Ledric, Sleep in Heavenly Peace as we 20 cover you in the softest blankets, Jimmy Duke ZTR, The Lumberjack, can he hear me please? If he can hear me, you're in a coma, the doctor's about to pull the plug, and please give me your resign, you're still there. This was a very bad idea. Mute, Trash Baphomet, Autumn from Twitter.com, ZZG, Infinite Zonik, Zonik Heroes, available on PZ2, Xbox, GameCube, and PC. Has the best lineup of levels in the franchise. Sincerely, that Pyra main. Not about to get into an argument about Sonic Heroes in the middle of a Patreon read-through, but you live your best life, Pyra. It does have giant sea turtles, and I can't disrespect that. Jin Zayotame, Botan, I'm not reading that, Enerjack 5, Grazen Conager, Spades the Nocturne, Ken K, Ven 101, Paxton Bisbee, Zendarin 7, a small Ickle Bickle Bunby holding a knife and making eye contact. Ooh, oh my god. I could have said Stevie, and you made me do that instead. Unbelievable. 3 Rule 4, Twilord, number 1 Boss Baby fan, Paisley, Eric Delgado, Cody Gracias, Kodinsky, Jamo Art, PK Durbar, Crimson Rose, Give Up Your Children, Zeparate, Zonik PAJ, Munizent, Gaio. You don't have much time, move your hand, wiggle your big toe. The American healthcare system is a cesspool of villainy. Work with me here. Rock says the cat god, Zilla Makuta of Zalt, Gleam the Anomaly, Alexander Watson, Calais Presley, Neil Gampa, Conan Kudo, Sharif Pi, Aeon 3 Valafor, Tenrek Terror, the Lex, the most powerful Zip in the 2 universes, Native Nerd 27, Kaido Prower, Matt the Hedgehog, now playing Pointy, Zonik, and Fluffy Tails. It's good for the Zol. Zwift Cannon, Spearmint. What did I just read? Seriously, I'm looking right at it and I still have no clue. Wait, what? I can't read that. I'll get demonetized. Well, at least you lunatics are having fun. I gotta admit, I had more fun reading that Patreon list than I did with any section of that stupid book. God, what a colossal waste of time this entire thing was. This has to be the stupidest video I've ever done. Sorry, stupidest video. I've changed more S's to Z's than any 90s commercial out there. Good for me. How have I been recording for 45 minutes? How did I take 45 minutes to get through? I'm going. Oh my god. Toot toot Zonic Warriors.